Grand Rising and good day. I wish above all that you are prosperous, successful, healthy, and whole. The things that I share on this video are only perspectives of my journey and my process of awakening. It is my sole purpose to be able to help those along their journey of awakening, those who have awakened and are wondering now what next. What I would like to talk to you today about is how to give thanks in all things and what does that actually mean. For me, there were several steps in order to understand what that meant. Give thanks in all things. For me, I had to go through a process of forgiveness. So I would say about 2017, 2018, especially 2018, has really been a year of deep inner work, of healing and reprogramming. All the stories that I've told myself growing up, and all the things that I believed, and old paradigms and old systems that I clung to. I had to let those things go because I understood that they no longer served me for where I am today, right now in my life. So forgiveness. And it really all starts with forgiving yourself. You have to forgive yourself. And so for me, it took, days and months of just sitting with myself in meditation and really going back into past events and experiences in my life, those things that have shaped me, and those things that, as it was happening, there were hurtful situations, a lot of pain and trauma, abuse, neglect, but it was going back now and looking at those experiences, it actually taught me a lesson. And that's what they all are. Everything that we ever experience in life are lessons. They are teachers. Every person that we encounter, family members, friends, loved ones, significant others, everyone that we ever encounter are all teachers. They're all lessons. And so I had to once I understood that, it helped me better along my journey of awakening and my journey of spiritual awakening, basically. So forgiveness, that's the first key, that's the first step, is learning how to forgive yourself. But how do you forgive yourself? How you forgive yourself is, first of all, going back, sitting with yourself and dealing with all of those past experiences, those past traumas, those pains, the pain, the hurt. Go back and really, because the thing is while we were in that particular experience, we had a different viewpoint, a different mindset, because it was happening to us at that particular moment. So all we understood was how it made us feel in that moment. And that's how, a lot of times, that's how we equate things, or we remember things based on how it made us feel. So understanding what was that experience, and why did we feel that way? Because a lot of times our experiences, based on our perception at that particular time, it actually, going back and look at it now, it actually could be it could have been something totally different. And the best way that I can explain that is, growing up as a child, I never had a stable home. My brothers and I, we were always, it seemed like every year or every other year, we would always move from one place to another. One year we would be with our father, one year we would be with our mother, One year we'll be with one of our grandmothers, either my dad's mother or my mom's mother. And so that was pretty basically our childhood, was going from place to place to place to place. So we never really had a foundation. We never really had a stable home or childhood. And so I remember my parents, they went away to Dallas, Texas. Now, I didn't know this then, but now I know they went there to be able to go and find a home for us to be able to establish a home. But when they came back separated or divorced. And so that's really when everything began. For me, that's when the neglect began, because now both of my parents are separated, they're divorced, and at this point, my dad came back. At the time, we were staying with one of my grandmothers, and so my dad came back and he got us, but my mom never came back. So I felt neglected. I felt like this is where I began to start feeling like they didn't want us. But at the same time, too, my parents were very young when they had me. My mom was 16 and my dad was 17. So looking back on that situation, my parents were making the best decisions that was accessible to them at that particular time in their life. So they were only teenagers, and they had already had two sons, my oldest brother and myself. So, and then they went on to have two more, my two younger brothers. But they were young. They did not know what they were doing as parents. And also, taking into consideration, they didn't really have examples as parents on how to raise children or how to have a loving home, how to have a stable home, because they didn't have that themselves. And so they didn't really know how to give that. And so all of this is happening, and based on my perception at that time, I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling as far as neglect and abandonment, because I didn't know the actual situations that were happening at that particular time. So, they my dad came back, my mom, she ended up moving to Indiana. And so now I didn't have my mom. But I had both of my grandmothers, and I was with my dad's mom at that particular time. So, at that time, my dad, his biggest concern was making sure that we had a mother in our life. He wanted to make sure that we had that full family unit of having a mother and a father. But with that happening, that actually caused disturbance in the home, or wedge in the home, because while my father was trying to provide a mother, those situations actually turned out to be not so good situations or toxic situations, because the stepmothers that we were exposed to weren't necessarily at that particular time best for us. Now, I understood now, and going back and remembering then, the times that I had with my dad and we had with our father when it was just him, those, as I can remember, those were great times. But it is when those times when my dad felt like he needed to provide us a mother, those were times where it wasn't so good. And so my dad because he was trying to, please the wife. A lot of times we would, again, experience neglect or abuse, whether it be physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. Those were things that we were being too exposed to now, because all that time he was trying to provide a mother, when actually both of our grandmothers did what they needed to do to provide a mother for us. And so all we needed was our father. But because he felt like he wanted to provide us a mother, he exposed us to situations that turned out to be toxic situations. One situation was that my dad, his first marriage outside of my mom, there were our stepmother had 3 sons, and that's when my brothers and I, we began to experience molestation, because her sons were much older than us. So we began to experience molestation. So the thing is, my dad was always there, and he would always say to us that if we ever need to talk to him about anything, to talk to him and don't be afraid. But there was still fear there. There was still fear to speak up and say something. So although we didn't say anything, that situation occurred because of the fear of saying something. Now, the thing is I had a choice. The choice was to say something, but because of fear, I did not say something. So I experienced that, and I had to forgive that situation, because the thing about forgiveness, when you forgive yourself, is taking full responsibility. And that's the hard part. So that's why it's so hard for many to sit with themselves and to really go back and really look at their past experiences, past events. It's because now you have to look within yourself and take full responsibility of all of the choices and the decisions that were made in your life. So one aspect or perspective was I didn't have to experience that, because I could have spoke up and said something. But because of fear, I didn't say something, so I ended up having that experience. So I had to forgive myself, and I had to forgive the abusers. And that was to help me to learn who I am, because you have to understand this. Every lesson that we experience, every experience that we have, are all teachers and lessons to help us to wake up and to remember who we are. So everything that we experience in life are they're triggers to help us to remember who we truly are. And I won't go into that today, but every experience, every lesson are triggers to help us to remember who we are. So all of those experiences that I had, those were actually working for me. And at the time, though, I did not realize it. All I understood was at that time, it was pain and it was hurt that I was experiencing at that particular time. So, but with me now sitting here in meditation, I'm actually healing myself from all of those experiences. I'm healing myself from the neglect, because now I knew that my parents necessarily did not neglect me and my brothers, but they were making the best decisions for them at that particular time that they knew of. not from a selfish standpoint, but out of survival. So, you know, being pushed from one place to the next, 1 year with my mom, 1 year with one of my grandparents, 1 year with my father, you know, those situations were because, again, at the time they were teenagers. They were still in school. They had no idea what they were doing. So now, looking back at that situation, I can forgive them. Because I used to blame my parents for a lot of things, that I experienced in my life, and all of the traumas. I used to blame and fault my parents for the life that I had. But I had to take my power back, and I had to understand that they did the best that they could with the information and the knowledge that they had. So I had to forgive them, and I had to forgive myself for allowing myself to feel that way. Because until we sit with ourselves and heal ourselves of those past hurts and traumas, we can never really move forward in our life. Because every decision that we make are based on the lens of our past. So every decision, every choice that we make now in our life is based on what happened in the past. So if a situation comes up, you're now looking at, I know how this is going to go. I see this because I experienced this before. And so now, because I experienced this before, this is what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. But a lot of times that's not it. And so when you allow yourself to heal yourself of those past traumas and hurts, now you are not dictating and predicating your present or your future based on past experiences, because you've totally healed yourself from that experience. So healing, again, it's something you definitely have to, sit with yourself. Like I said, 2017, 2018, about 2 years, I had to withdraw myself from everything, all the distractions, all of the influences in my life, my parents, leaders in my life. I had to withdraw myself and sit with myself and allow myself to be alone to experience that, to really dig deep down, and to do some deep healing. So, so it's a process. It really is a process. And this is how you go within. Especially nowadays, is with, with spiritual awakening and awakening to consciousness. You hear a lot of people saying, go within. But what does that really mean, to go within? To go within is to sit with your own self. There's a saying that says, know thyself. Until you know yourself, you really can't live your full life authentically and genuinely, because you do not know who you are. So it's all about, to go within is to know thyself. So you have to sit with yourself. Sit with yourself in meditation. If you don't know how to meditate, there's different techniques out there of learning how to meditate. But what has helped me to be able to meditate is to really just sit with myself in a space all to myself. And a lot of times people try to clear their minds, but it's really not about trying to clear your mind. It's about sitting with those thoughts that come to your mind. The analogy is it's basically like when you look in the sky and you see the clouds. If you pay attention to the clouds are passing by. So you're noticing the clouds, but you're not getting stuck in the clouds because you're noticing that they're passing by. So basically, what you're doing is in meditation, you're acknowledging that thought without any judgment. So don't get caught up in judging the thought, whether it be positive or negative. Allow that thought to be, just be what it is. Allow it to be what it is, because that thought has come for a reason. An example is one day I was meditating and a thought came, you are your worst enemy. And I was trying to I am not my worst enemy. And I was trying to push it away. I was being resistant to it. So I was trying to push it away. And so I heard my higher self say, no, allow that to be, sit with that. So I sat with it and I was like, okay, if I'm my worst enemy, why am I my worst enemy? And so as I begin to sit with that and let that be what it is, I then begin to see that I'm my worst enemy because I have this ability of self-sabotaging myself. And by self-sabotaging myself, I understand that I am a great starter of things. I always have a lot of good ideas that I come up with. But with those ideas, I'll start something, I'll start an adventure, or I'll start a plan, I'll start a business, I'll start a project. But I have never been able to complete what I started. But I understood that that came from someplace. Because, again, growing up, I did not have a stable foundation. I did not have a stable home. And so that was implanted. That was a system or belief that I did not know that was implanted in me, because I never had a stable home, every year I was either starting a new school, I was, moving to a new home. So I was always starting, but I never finished or completed things for the most part. So I would start stuff but never complete them. And so when I understood, I'm self-sabotaging myself, because whenever I would start something, I would have a great start, but I would have a poor finish. And I also understood that I understood that there was a fear of success, a fear of actually winning, a fear of actually accomplishing something. So because of that, that played a role in my life that I did not finish. So now that I understood this, now I'm able to complete things. Whenever I start something, I'm able to complete it now, because I understood that, I would self-sabotage myself. And so because I would self-sabotage myself, I was my own worst enemy. So because I sat with that in meditation and I dealt with that, I healed myself from that, I accepted myself and I loved myself right there. Now that is no longer an issue for me, because I dealt with that trauma. I dealt with that block. So that's no longer an issue for me. So now with anything that I start, I'm able to complete and I'm able to finish now, because that is no longer an issue, because I am healed of that particular experience. So that's how you heal yourself. Now, getting to understanding the importance of finding gratitude, because this is where the statement comes in: all things give thanks. Every experience that I've ever experienced, every event that I've experienced, once I've forgiven myself, now I am no longer a victim to that particular experience. So because I'm no longer a victim, I can stand in a place of appreciation. I can stand in a place of gratitude. And I can stand in a place of thankfulness. because I understand that that particular experience was a lesson. See, this is sometimes this is the issue. We get stuck on the pain of that experience, the trauma of that experience. We get stuck right there, and that's it. But what did we learn from that experience, from that event? What did it teach us? Because everything that we experience is teaching us about ourselves. It's teaching us what we like and what we don't like. It is teaching us what we will allow and what we will not allow in our lives. So looking beyond the actual experience or the event, looking beyond the pain, looking beyond the trauma, what did I learn from that experience? And so it is now what I learned that I am grateful for. So it is not necessarily what I experienced, but it was what I learned from that experience that I'm able to say, you know what, I appreciate that experience now, because if I had never experienced that, then I would have not been able to be exposed to this, that, and the other. I wouldn't have known that I would have the capability of surviving that situation or being able to produce X, Y, and Z. Whatever that experience produced, I can sit in a seat of gratitude and say, you know what? Because of that experience, now I'm this. Because our experiences make us. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Feel free to subscribe at the bottom to receive new content whenever I post a video. And also be sure to hit the bell icon so that you receive notifications. And also, please feel free to leave a comment. I love reading your comments and hearing what you have to say, your feedback. I enjoy responding to your comments, so please feel free. And until next time, love, light, and namaste.